Alright, you saw the thumbnail. We are talking about new rarities and if it would even be a good idea in Destiny 2. Spoiler? Yeah, I do think it's a good idea, so let me explain why. But real quick, this is a different video from normal, so new viewers might have been recommended this by the YouTube algorithm, so if that's you, welcome to the channel. I'm Kothis. I've played Destiny for 9 years now. Since the beginning, I do a lot of guides for Destiny 2, from Lost Sectors to Grandmasters to Raids, and a lot of new player friendly stuff too, just everything Destiny on this channel. So welcome. And the last thing I'll say, just as a disclaimer, this video is my opinion. Don't take anything I say too seriously. It's just meant to create a discussion. It's a fun topic to talk about, and I really enjoy theorizing all about this stuff. So intro out of the way, let's get into the video. For 9 years, we've had the same 5 rarities: common, uncommon, rare, legendary, and exotic. This has mostly worked okay until recent years when the legendary weapon pool became flooded with different tiers within the legendary tier, if that makes sense, and also when exotics started dropping like candy. I think there's definitely an imbalance with how often certain things drop in the game, and I think it could use some work. So after watching a video from Scaro9 and Aztecross, I will link their videos in the description, and a lot of other videos that a lot of other people have made on this topic, I decided to throw my hat into the ring, some ideas out there with what I think could be a really cool and realistic approach that Destiny 2 could take in the future. So I know I mentioned we have 5 rarity tiers in the game, but let's be honest, it's just 2. We have legendary and exotic. Commons and uncommons are used for like the first 5 minutes of your journey, and rares kind of have a purpose in that they are used for leveling once a year with new expansions. But that's it. After that, they are trash. And I guess that's okay. I really can't think of a more realistic utility that these tiers can offer us, but I do believe that we can expand the current legendary tier, so let's talk about that. Right now, we technically have 4 tiers of legendary weapon, each of which are measurably different in power from one another. And I know there are of course outliers in every tier that I'm talking about, but we're talking about on paper here, how do we have 4 tiers of legendary weapon? In order from weakest to strongest, first we have our regular legendary weapon drops, which are definitely the most common. Next, we have our Grandmaster Nightfall and Trials Adept weapons. These weapons will allow you to slot in adept weapon mods, which are slightly better than traditional mods, and they also give a small stat bump to every stat. It is not a noticeable difference over regular legendary weapons, but it's still a difference. The third legendary weapon type is the crafted weapon. These are definitely more powerful. We can enhance their traits, get a small stat bump to every stat, and of course get access to adding whatever traits we want on that gun anytime we want, so a lot of freedom. Obviously, we can't slot in adept mods here to these non-adept weapons, but access to the enhanced traits and the full customizability vastly outweighs the drawback from no adept mods. And finally, the top dog of the legendary tier, the Crota's End and Root of Nightmares adept weapons. These can only be acquired from completing challenges on these raids master mode, so they are very tough to get in comparison to regular crafted weapons from these raids especially. So why are these the best? What makes these better? Well, you can enhance these adept weapon traits, change out the barrel and magazine, they have better stats, and you can slot in adept mods. The only quote-unquote drawback, I guess, is that you can't change the traits that you get on these weapons, so you do have to grind out that perfect god roll. And grinding master raids is not easy. But is that really a bad thing? This game is a looter shooter after all, so what's so bad about playing the game to get these perfect weapons? I like how these new raids offer adepts that are finally objectively better than my crafted weapons, and I like how I have to grind for the god roll that I want. It's rewarding. This is the minimum standard that I think every single adept weapon in Destiny 2 should have, in my opinion. You run the toughest content, you grind out the rolls that you want, and now you have the perfect version of the weapon that you grinded for. So this is kind of where my idea for the adept weapon tier begins. I've got a few ideas here, but let's fix the current legendary tier first. Scaro9 made the video talking about how weapon crafting is kind of killing the grind for god rolls, since we just grind the activity for 5 patterns of the weapon that we want, and then we're done. We just make our god roll. I don't know about you, but I instantly delete any weapon that can be crafted because it is completely useless to me. I don't care about it at all because I'm just gonna make my god roll once I can craft it. So what's a non-crafted version gonna do for me? This is probably gonna ruffle some feathers, but I think that to bring back some of that looter shooter god roll grinding back to the game, we should adopt the current adept weapon crafting functionality to all legendary weapons in the game. This means that there would no longer be patterns to grind for, there's no more red border RNG, it's just taken completely out of the game. What you would instead be doing is grinding for the god roll that you want, again for every legendary weapon in the game. The difference in this case is that you would take any legendary weapon to the Enclave, enhance the traits that it dropped with, and level it like you normally would. So this would combine the current non-craftable legendary weapon tier with the craftable tier, and you would just make that the functionality for all legendary weapons. For me, I almost never have a non-crafted weapon equipped, so a lot of the weapons in the game are completely useless to me, since a good amount of weapons can't be crafted. I think it's also a bit confusing to only give some weapons in the game crafting functionality. It's got to be really confusing for a new player. Why not just give every legendary in the game the ability to be taken to the Enclave to be enhanced? So to recap, we'd be removing red borders from the game entirely and allowing every legendary weapon to be crafted with enhanced traits that it dropped with originally. Obviously, crafting costs would have to be adjusted in some way because we'd be bringing so many more weapons onto the crafting table, but honestly, that's like not a worry of mine. I think that could easily be figured out with some currency adjustments. The only major issue I could see is, hey, what if I find a better roll later? I think that all you'd have to do is dismantle the one that you leveled up and the one that you don't want anymore. You would get some currency refunded back to you, and you could then use some of that currency on the newer and better one that you found. But guys, remember back in Destiny 1, we had to level up and spend those motes of light currency on all of our legendary weapons just to unlock their traits. And if we found a better version of that weapon, we would have to delete the one that we just leveled up. So this has already been in the game before, and it wasn't even a big issue back then. I think this would be completely fine. So this brings me to my next point. What about adept weapons? I think adept weapons right now are just crowding up the legendary weapon pool. I think that these most powerful non-exotic weapons should have a red color, really signifying that these are truly in a different league than their legendary counterparts. Every adept weapon would be created equally, so that means that Grandmaster Nightfall adepts and Trials adepts would be brought up to the same power as the Crota's End and Root of Nightmares adepts. So you'd have the ability to slot in your adept mods, you can enhance their traits, you level the weapon, add mementos, all that stuff. And I think there is an argument that this would probably be enough to justify the adept tier, but I think we could take it a step further. I just wanted to add some creative input here. I think that we can make them more powerful, but in a realistic way. In this scenario, in my dream world of Destiny, adept weapons would get a higher level of enhanced traits, which I'm calling maximized traits. And hold on, before you say this would be too powerful, just take into consideration the current enhanced trait power over regular traits. It's really not that much. Enhanced Demolitionist, for example, gives 1% more grenade energy per kill than normal Demolitionist, which is hardly noticeable. I absolutely think there is room for maximized traits, where Maximized Demolitionist might give 15% grenade energy per kill, for example. With how difficult this adept tier, adept quality of weapon would be to get, I think that they should also have a maximized version of their origin trait too to make them a bit more potent. Maybe even a better barrel and magazine too, who knows. I've always just thought it's looked weird with us only having 2 out of the 5 slots able to be upgraded, but maybe that's just me, I don't know. My estimation is that these weapons should be 5 to 10% more powerful than legendary weapons currently, justifying the need for that new tier. And obviously, if we bring in adept quality weapons, we will need adept armor as well. And I think this is a really easy solution. It's kind of in the game already. You just make Artifice Armor adept armor. Right now, Artifice Armor allows you to pick a small upgrade to a stat of your choice. It's nothing too powerful, but as the game currently stands, you can get Artifice Armor by running Master Difficulty dungeons. I think that all the armor you get in Master Raids should also drop this adept quality armor, or Artifice Armor, whatever you want to call it. The tiny stat increase that you can get from Artifice Armor is nice, but I think that doing something like adding an additional mod slot with maybe 12 energy instead of 10 might be worthy of this new adept tier, adept rarity of armor. This could be cool. So that's the adept stuff, but I have seen some people talk about a new tier above exotic as well. It's not the greatest game in the world, but I know Diablo 4 brought in these extremely rare items called Uber Uniques. I think it's literally like a 1 in a million drop chance that you get these, so only a few of them have ever been found. I don't think Destiny needs anything this rare, don't worry, I'm not arguing for that, but I think something like this in the game would be cool. I thought the name Mythic sounded kind of cool, and I do like the chromatic appearance just to set it apart. These higher than exotic weapons would have similar functionality to exotics in that you could only have one of them equipped at a time, but they would need to be objectively better than the current exotics we have now, and there would only be a few in the game, like maybe 1 to 2 added per year. And I think that there is no better place to add these than raids. Raid exotics are usually the most exciting thing to get because of how much time they take to get. I mean, think about the difference between a raid exotic and an exotic that you get from a post-campaign quest mission. Like, it's not even the same. Most of the time when I complete those questline exotics, I don't even care about the exotic and it just collects dust in my vault. And I know not every raid exotic is amazing, 1000 voices looking at you, but I do think things like conditional finality, collective obligation, recently Touch of Malice got an upgrade. Those are standout exotics that are incredibly unique. I think these mythic weapons should only drop once you complete the raid's title to show your absolute mastery over the raid. So you would need to complete all the challenges on master mode, do all the subclass runs, get all the loot, do all the off encounter triumphs, and so on to acquire this new mythic version of the exotics that we have now. Obviously the mythic would be more powerful than the regular exotic we'd get, but in a way that wouldn't break the game. I mean, as the game is now, we have plenty of exotics that are leaps and bounds more powerful than others. In my idea, I think that little extra bump in power over the normal exotic would be totally fine. I really think the main reason why you'd want this is obviously to flex on your friends, show them that you have one of the coolest weapons in the game and that you did the hardest thing. And yeah, I think there's probably room for mythic armor as well, although I'm not quite sure how to fit that into the game. This is more of a weapon focused video, so I didn't take too much time to think about mythic armor, I'll be honest. But let me know down in the comments if you can think of a cool idea for it. I love talking about this stuff. If you can't tell, I'm very passionate about it, and I love thinking of ways that Destiny could be made better. And of course, just again, this is my opinion. I'm not claiming that this is the perfect solution. I would love to hear your thoughts down in the comments. But that is it for this one, everyone. I hope you enjoyed. I will see you all in the Discord or in the next video.